Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Wendy McEwen and I'm the APAC Head of Marketing and Digital at Knight Frank. I joined the Built Environment Committee at the Chamber a few months ago. Thank you for joining today's webinar on the design challenges for the post-pandemic world. The term built environment encompasses real estate, architecture, facilities management, and all other relevant business functions. The Built Environment Committee aims to provide inspiration, encouragement, and support to members within the sector and to promote the sector across the market, while also providing opportunities for member companies through education and best practice. As you can see on your screen, today's session brings together a fantastic panel of experts. I'm so excited from our pre-event briefings to hear what they're all going to discuss today. Raymond, joining you is Raymond Ho from architectural firm Scott Brownrigg, Nick Hughes of Standard Chartered Bank, Scott Munro from building services leader Arup, and Stephen Banks from BP. Moderating the insights around the impact of design and the opportunity for the built environment for the future will be Yannick Lenormand, the Foresight lead for East Asia at Arup. Yannick is based in Hong Kong, and his role is to understand the manifestations of change going on around us, to identify the future needs and how these changes are impacting or may impact the future of the built environment. And with his background in industrial design, design thinking and material science, there's no better person than to lead today's conversation around the design challenges for the post-pandemic world. Over to you, Yannick, for an insightful discussion.
Thank you, Wendy. And thank you all the panelists to join us today and for our audience to listen to our insights. So let's start with a little introduction, a bit more in-depth introduction on our panelists. I wanted to ask each of you to get to know you a bit better. Beyond your titles, beyond the company you work for, what is your role? And why do you do what you do? Maybe we could start on my screen. I have Raymond, then Stephen, then Scott and Nick. If we could go in this order. Just a quick one, a few words.
Yeah. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm an architect, and basically, I have a passion for actually design on all levels, from master planning to micro detailing interiors. So as practice, I provide strategic input to Singapore and Southeast Asia as a regional practice. So where we are going beyond just designing four walls, we actually look into research and also studying human behavior, how we could actually improve design. And maybe later we would maybe have a chance to share a bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Stephen, how about you?
Hi, everyone. Steve Banks. I'm looking after the real estate function across Asia Pacific. So I think, one of our key objectives at the moment is to modernize BP. And obviously my role in that is across the board in terms of the real estate component, but also improving our workplace, in particular, the workplace experience, and, making sure that we're fit for purpose for the future, adopting all of the sustainability and other goals that, we aim to be a market leader in. So yeah, that's my role. So I have a great passion about, wanting to make the best experience for our employees, which will help us then to achieve our other goals.
Thanks, Stephen. How about Nick? Hi, Nick. Or Scott?
Hi, I'm Scott Munro. I'm the building services leader for Arup in Singapore. My passion in terms of projects is about integration of design. I'm involved in a lot of workplace projects as well as new building construction. I'm actively participating in areas covering wellness and sustainability. So I think the real key for me in terms of what I do in my day-to-day job is being an integrator across a design team, both the internal and the external elements of that design team, to understand, how the combination of the building services and other design features come together in terms of a sustainable product. And today, increasingly more about wellness.
Thank you, Scott. And Nick,
yep.
How about you?
Workplace within the ASEAN region, which is ASEAN and South Asia, which incorporates all projects, facilities management, sustainability, and now, more importantly, the experience of everything. So we have 57,000 staff within this region, and it's just basically to sort of, you know, create a better experience for everyone, and in a more sustainable workplace. So that's where we are. And no project is the same as the previous one. So everything is driven about innovation. What have we done? What we did yesterday is not good enough for today. So everything is just new and sort of, and innovate what we can. Fantastic.
Thank you, all of you. Just a quick note for the audience today. Feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A section. We will do our best to get our panelists to give you their perspective on what they do. So I'll have a quick introduction on the topic today, but a lot of things have been said already during this pandemic, and some countries are getting out of it, some are entering it, some are in the middle of it. In terms of how to cope with the now, how to bring people back to the office, or not back to work, because work hasn't stopped. People have been working from different places, but to go back to the office safely. We won't have all the answers, but we will explore what are the possibilities for us to redefine the envision tomorrow. So I'll have an open question to all of you panelists today. What do you see that is changing or has already changed in your industry? From your perspective, or maybe your clients are asking different kind of things. And this is a question for all of you. Who would like to give it a start?
I could take that one up.
Great.
Yannick? Yes.
Stephen.
I mean, for our industry, we're obviously seeing a huge drive to zero carbon. The energy transition is huge. And obviously the key driver of that is actually digitization of the business. And I think that might cross many industries, but I think that's the key driver for us, is to drive this energy transition and zero carbon agenda. We can only see that the best route forward to do that is through digitization. So,
yeah, great one.
Yeah. Maybe I'll give my 2 cents worth. As an architect, we felt very obliged as a profession to respond to this question. Exactly what actually our industry has changed. For our practice, we have our unit in UK, the design research unit generally, where we actually reorganize our focus for, strangely, actually earlier March this year at the peak of the COVID, to reinvestigate and even research how the spread of contagion can be minimized in the built environment through good design. So together, we actually developed a quick 10-point plan. I will not elaborate, but basically just to summarize, this 10-point plan to basically a range of issues to look into. I mean, for example, the material science, you know, the historic materials like copper and brass, you know, that could actually could kill contagion even better, you know, even faster than stainless steel. Things of that, and even nanoscience materials like self-repairing and self-cleaning materials. We are looking into that, and also historical aspects of building forms. What are the things in the past, in the previous typologies that we can learn and to actually bring as part of current trend moving forward? Putting aside the digital twin model, which I hope I will have a chance to share a bit later, but also about automation. But I think last but not least, I believe the way forward, what has changed is a lot more collaborative platform with our stakeholders, and also through design, basically to generate a evidence-based, being informative design and not opinion-based moving forward, which I think is an important platform. I think it's an important catalyst moving forward for us and our industry. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Any other
from this one? I just want to say from a banking side, you know, retail banking is very face-to-face, very sort of personal touch.
Right.
So when the pandemic arrived, you know, various regulators ordered retail branches to close, which meant that people had to sort of do their banking online banking, to use their apps. I mean, Hong Kong, we just launched a new digital-only bank, and that's going to be replicated around our region as well. But also the corporate, commercial, and institutional banking work still continues, but it's all done over blue jeans and team meetings and things like that. So you know, the banking sector still continues, Be interesting to see what the bad loan is going to be next year, but that's a different story. So, okay.
So we are losing the face-to-face, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Due to the digitization, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Move on to your personal experience when you went back to the office after a couple of weeks, or for some people longer than that. What was your experience, good and bad? What did you see that has changed and something maybe unexpected that came out of all this situation? I just want to turn towards the positive sides as well of what is happening. Anyone?
I think, Yannick, it's quite tricky because we haven't actually, not everybody allowed back to the office just yet.
Yeah.
But what we are seeing just before that is a lot more, let's just say, quick social meetings online at the moment. But obviously the thought about the planning for the future is that, you know, we need to have more of these collaborative kind of meetings that aren't necessarily all about work, but about socialization and, you know, culture. So I think the positives are we've actually had more communication between people in wider locations. Mm-hmm. And we expect to embed that into more of our workplace when we actually go back to work into the office more permanently. So, you know, I think that's the positive, is there's actually more communications. Yeah.
Yeah, Yannick, I'd add to that. You know, I'm spending probably 50% of my time in the office workplace environment, and have been doing so for a number of weeks now. And as we've got through that startup or restart, and I feel it's very refreshing to be able to get the mix of having the choice of working in the office or working at home. And I sense from conversations that we're having with clients that, you know, the future is very much that everyone does have a need to get back to the office. And the reason they have a need to get back to the office is the collaborative social conversations which have got to take place so that everyone can really enjoy what they're doing. And I see a strong sense that the future is that, you know, we will return to working in the office. Working in the office doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is going to be in the office workplace. And the biggest issue there is probably that people will have a choice and will be able to vary what they do in different workplace settings.
But that notion of choice is interesting, right? I mean, not everybody has a choice, and some companies are better to give choice to their employees.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo what Stefan and even Scott has mentioned. I mean, for us as a practice in UK, we only have about 10% actually back in office actually. Most of the 90% are still working from home. I mean, that's the same for my New York office. In Singapore, fortunately or not, we have part of our team back in office, I mean, supported by the opening of relaxation of guidelines by the government. The first 2 months for me is actually really much of a novelty, working from home, everything's from home, but you will feel a bit of stretch. After a while, there's a difficulty in terms of managing the practice and the business as a whole. And of course, I mean, within the short 2 or 3 months turnover, our business collectively, globally, we kind of quickly develop quick social working system to basically like a safety net to stitch everybody to ensure well-being. You know, to maintain well-being, you know, despite, I mean, going through a period of uncertainty, which currently people are still feeling the waves of it. And of course, rigid IT infrastructure. Paradoxically, IT does disappoint us at many times as well. So I believe moving forward, it is something about how we can build resilience in our IT systems as well. But I think it's also the need. I see a great need from many conversations that I have of people who still continue to want to physically meet. And because there's a strive for social interaction within the workplace, for people to mingle, for mentorships and culture to be built. And I think right from the fundamentals, because we have basic psychological and even self-fulfillment needs within the working space. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's that's pretty well put there. Thanks, Raymond. For me also that cultural element is the bit that is going to drive us back. You know, the office is by no means dead. It's certainly a necessary part of a company and a culture, you know, and working culture in general. So I think reinforcing that in terms of how we might look at the challenges for design and office design, certainly I think there'll be much more emphasis on solo work being done away from the office and at home perhaps. And then obviously the office being much more of a meeting place, collaboration place, and obviously somewhere to drive those serendipitous meetings with colleagues that aren't necessarily directly working with you and things like that. So the challenge obviously is to work those back in and keep that choice, but while also maintaining the culture, you know, and working environment for companies to thrive.
Some of the positives from our sort of side is that we have 5% of our population in the office, and those are basically regulatory people. So they had to be in there. So that meant 95% of the space is empty. So we have a scorecard, which the majority of a few of the items are sustainability. So we kicked into the air. We succeeded on water savings, electrical savings, wastage savings, air travel as well, which is we saved millions of dollars on our air travel. So that's something good on that sort of side. Now we're planning to do up to 50% between now and then the end of the year, to try and get 50% of the people in. Now that's not a directive from the bank. That is if you feel comfortable and you need to go in. So we're not forcing people back in, but it's getting back to you have the social aspect, the learning from others, which is a great loss at the moment. The impromptu discussions, which we were sort of saying, and the famous water cooler moments as well, where you just have that quick 30-second conversation and you learn which at the moment takes half an hour, because everyone books half an hour into your diary just to do a blue jeans or something like that. So that's the good side. And then going forward on the designing of the offices, we can sort of take that on when on the opportunities later on.
Yeah. So these are some of those comments are maybe about temporary aspects to going back to work or to the office. What do you think will change forever, and we will never go back to certain things, like, for example, traveling for a board meeting, or having a 2 hours meeting that requires two days of traveling? These kind of things, what will never be like before? Any idea?
I think people just going into the office, sitting at a desk for 8 to 10 hours a day, that's going to stop, because people
I really agree with that. Yeah.
People have their task. They'll do that at home, but they'll go into the office for a particular purpose. Without sort of to meet up with Stephen for a coffee and a chat about projects and things like that. And that's why people will go back. There has to be a social or collaborative reason in order to do that.
Yeah, I think the driving change that would be permanent is that the office is a much more open and collaborative environment than it might be today. And I think that's something that will be quite permanent for the majority of people. That doesn't say it's going to be for everybody, but yeah, why go to the office to sit behind a screen all day? There's no point anymore. And I think companies will also look at this from an efficiency perspective, both from a carbon footprint as well as a cost base. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, because people can work from home in their own time. So I think that flexibility of workplace was something that a lot of us in this industry have been talking about for many years and have not been able to push it to the further degrees. But this is an ability for us to take that opportunity and do that and embed that in the future on a permanent basis, right?
Yeah. Raymond, do you have a point of view on this one?
Yes. I must say that technology in many ways has allowed us to do so. And I'm definitely looking forward for 5G to be implemented. And we will see a greater mobility even within the office and how we're going to do business. So definitely they have reduced intangibly our working areas to a certain extent, even the need for physical office. Now, it's very strange. It's very interesting discussion, because the question between whether is an open space, open office layout, or a cubicle space, we have many discussion on that. And it's for me, an open plan layout is not new for us as architect, because I'm trained in the studios where we have large drawing boards in a big open space, and that's where we actually spend time looking at over each other's shoulder and check what everybody's doing, and to inhabit it, basically ideas and even discussions. So we will see a move away perhaps from both extreme ends, but I want to just support that we will see more flexible spaces. We will see more flexible layout to accommodate the fluid patterns, that actually both tangible and intangible of people coming back to the office, and to an extent of how shared offices would actually be implemented. Really, I think that the bigger question here is, what is the level of confidence can design, or us as myself as design can allow to bring the occupants back? Most of the people are still working from home, for many reasons. It's a level of confidence I felt that design can actually be a catalyst and even a platform to work around. First of all, we know definitely one thing for change is people are now less tolerant towards poor air quality in our built environment. And maybe that is something that we can look into, and I'm sure our profession is looking into in depth how we can actually look into better and fresher air within the space. Thank you.
You mentioned people at the end, and then I think it's also a key point. Do you expect any change in maybe talent profiles if you're a company trying to recruit people, or if you are someone who's looking for a new opportunity for a job? Which kind of company would you be looking for? So there will be a change in space design, but also the people will have to adapt in certain ways. What do you see in that sense? Maybe we need to adapt our technical skills, or be a bit more social for those who are not managing our soft skills. I don't know. Be more resilient.
Well, if we were to step into the area of academics recently, myself, I've been very involved with the academics arena as well, and we've been thinking about what does digitization means for the next generation of designers for us as architects. Mm-hmm. How can we actually start to, as a form of discipline, to expand beyond what we are currently, the old school of basically what we learn as technical skills, into other cross science or even arts area to understand culture and even human behavior as a step moving forward. But not forgetting, I think in the age of automation that we are currently facing, leveraging on data that's going to be collected is going to be one of the key things, and I think we should continue to do that to inform us how design can be decided with the stakeholders and even the client themselves, which I would love to share a bit more, if I may. Is about actually coming back to my earlier point about our 10-point plan, where collaborations is actually one of the key factors. I would say that building 4 walls and building 4 partitions is the easiest thing to do for us. We are in opinion that having automation into our design process will leverage, and we actually set up a design unit. It's actually known as a design strategic unit 4 years ago, to how to leverage on data to inform us internal space layout. And in fact, our first question to the client is not about what kind of space you need. The first question we ask to our clients is actually, how can, as you as a company, engage the best people and even to build a great culture? And maybe in the same, how does having a good culture drive marketing ideas, in your company? So it was very interesting that we set up, and we actually had a group of clients as a result of it, and it was a very simple software actually that we designed. It was actually a gaming software, actually, literally, that we profile our clients, and their occupants, as avatars within the space, and actually as a result of surveys, we collect quantitative data, through advanced spatial analysis, and of how they would actually use the space, and also in order to utilize the space and being more efficient moving forward. I think this will help. I believe the change management or most companies will need to rethink. The changing of management need to be a bit more frequent and perhaps even more thorough in many sense, because we are only talking about COVID-19. We never know. There could be a COVID-20 or 21, you know, if investing would actually happen. Yeah. So we have found success with some of our clients naming the Expedia, Unilever, Bloomberg in the Europe, and even Thomson Reuters, and to a certain extent, Crown Estates in assessing their properties. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm really happy to see that we are already on the opportunities side of the conversation, and that's really good to see. So we've been mentioning as well that COVID has been the real catalyzer or the accelerator of digital transformation that we've been talking for years, and now it's happening whether we or some people want it or not, and that's great to see. So, how do you see that this digital transformation is going to have an impact on, let's say, the real estate market? How to build, how to design, how to operate differently. Maybe Nick or Stephen on this one.
I think it comes back to the word flexibility again,
right?
And obviously it's a challenge and an opportunity both for building owners, but I think you're going to see much more integration between developers, building owners, providers of real estate, and companies, having a much more integrated approach to keep that flexibility.
Yeah.
And, shared space, which, we see the rise of shared service providers, but I think this gets more integrated than that. It's, it's really about the whole building serving a purpose, not just the space that a particular occupier is in.
Yeah.
Much more emphasis on this. And in terms of the digitization component, a lot more input back, feedback mechanisms using technology to measure and adapt and constantly, kind of update things that aren't being utilized properly, which is both an agenda for a developer as well as an agenda for a user or a tenant. So I think that's the main thing, is a closer tie and a more open collaborative environment between companies and providers of different services. Yeah.
I think the requirement for office space is going to reduce. So I think I mentioned before that, in 2 months, our company had everyone put in blue jeans. We had Skype for Business. Our data pipes per country increased 7-fold, and that's millions of dollars there. Our buildings, we've got new VPN gateways going into various locations, so that helps on that. So people are far more connected now from a work and also a social side. So when we translate that back into the workplace, we undertook, as I said, 95% of people working from home. We undertook a survey, a Leasement Survey, and a Leasement is a property industry survey which basically measures how staff feel about their workplace. Are the chairs good, etc., etc. So we did this, but we did it for the home, and basically. And also one of the questions was, do you want to work more at home, or do you want to work more at the office? So 65% of those who responded said that that they would work less than 50% in the office. So that sort of said that working from home is a good thing, and it's also very productive as well, because the deals are still being done, etc., etc. We also had another survey, which is the bank survey, which is a My Voice. So slightly more than 65% said that they would work less than 50% in the office as well. So we know we're on the right path there. So with that, the company's starting to issue expressions of interest to change people's contracts to a hybrid contract, whereby you would commit to say that you would spend 2 or 3 days at home, or 2 or 3 days in the office. So therefore, that means that if you put that on an average, we would require 50% less seating arrangements. However, on the other hand, as we've just discussed earlier, the office is going to be more of the social side. So it'd be more social interaction, people going in there. But also part of the survey saying, what do we need in the office? So going forward, we need better F&B. Our F&B has not been that good in a standard pantry. So it's not going to be like a Google where you have everything's free and you have, you know, steak and, you know, lovely Italian meals, etc. But these are the sort of things which we're looking at now. We're actually starting, well, we have a initial design for one of our buildings in Changi. And that's going to be, the inside is going to be more collaboration. There's going to be less 50% on task base. The collaboration side is going to be flexible. So for a couple of weeks, you could have a sprint team in there. For the next couple of weeks, you could have an open plan collaboration area. So the idea is on flexibility for the workplace going forward. So, so we're looking to have 50% of people working from home and then 50% people coming in on a collaboration side with a desk booking system as well, and an area where whether you want a war room, whether you want a training room, a meeting room, a sprint table, a collaboration area. So those need to be booked on our sort of on new app, which is coming out as well. So digitization is really having a major effect on what we're doing. And getting back to the developers, where we're downsizing in particular areas of developer, we will also put into the lease that we would want some opportunity to go into their co-working spaces, because a lot of developers are starting their own co-working spaces. So that would be an overflow, an opportunity to overflow into that if we run out of space.
I mean, yeah, please.
I'd put one other model out there, and you hear a message from this conversation that says the amount of workplace real estate for these major companies is going to get smaller. I think one model that could eventuate would be big corporations have a main office in central city area and have one or two satellites in other parts of the country, so that the people who are making the choice of whether they work at home or go into a workplace and can interact with others can also do it with a shorter travel time and go into the satellite office and enjoy the sort of facilities and the camaraderie that they get in a workplace setting.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, we're also even seeing that for a city by itself. So you might have a central hub office and then a membership structure for offices near people's houses. So, you know, you've got those kind of core business activity collaborations that need everyone to get together once in a while. Yeah. You go in your own space, and then, you know, we're looking at this for cities which also don't necessarily have great working from home for people. Yeah. So it's somewhere near to their home, so they don't have to travel. So particularly in countries like India. So it's all these hybrid models, I think, are definitely going to lead to a reduction in dedicated companies' workspace, but the flexibility increase and leveraging partnerships and leveraging different locations is definitely going to be very front and center of quite a lot of companies' kind of workplace thoughts, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
again, it's around flexibility.
Yeah, but we're projecting ourselves a little bit in the future, but without knowing.
It's happening now, though. It's not
the time of.
It's not really future.
Right?
It's in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different locations have different pace, right?
I guess at the end of the day, it's there's no one size fits all. Yeah. What we do understand, and you know, Nick alludes to it, when you do the surveys of user satisfaction, let's call it, your satisfaction, flexibility, and giving them more choice is certainly a positive thing for everyone concerned, and not only in productivity terms, in personal terms. You know, people can do different things with their time, more to suit them. So I think, you know, certain cities are more advanced, certain countries are more advanced in terms of the infrastructure and other things. So it really is a case of a pick and mix associated with specific locations and specific companies and even cultures. Yeah. So, you know, I think the real conclusion here is more flexibility, more choice, and that goes in terms of all the contractual structures and, you know, real estate and everything else that we adopt. Right.
Right. We've been talking a lot about office and home as the two entities. What are all the in-betweens if we talk about working from anywhere as a concept, and without having a location-based, whether it is at home or at the office? Do you believe in that happening? You know, how can we make this happen? like I see a beautiful beach behind you, Stephen, or behind Raymond, there's a great, I don't know what it is, a hotel or complex. It looks great. I would like to have a day of work there. But of course we have IT issues, connectivity, etc. All these things that doesn't allow this to be, so it's very flexible, but it's not necessarily always possible. How do you see design could help in making this possible? Anyone like to chip in?
I must say that it's a very tough one, actually. As what Stephen has said, it is a one jacket size cannot fit everybody, because I have faced with clients with different working models. I mean, even myself as an architectural practice, for everybody to work separately and not discussing about ideas collectively, I think we'll miss a point of enjoying design, you know, as a passion moving forward, or even as a culture. So I mean, in a real corporate world, I think it's a barometer kind of balance between the both ends, what they actually will call for, because I mean, not every company's own assets, most of them are on a rental basis, and the choice, I think maybe I want to pick the word Stephen actually said about choices. I think most of the stakeholders and the business owners have started to realize the importance of quality choices, superior choices. So it kind of prompts us currently where we are in COVID to really, as designers, to rethink how can we design better choices post-COVID, so that there is a range of possibilities for different businesses, or even to actually suit its own needs, because every business at the end, they still want to build their own culture and their brand identity. I think that is almost number one and on their top, you know, about even their own, and also with the well-being consideration of their own occupants. So I think the quality choice that the design can embark is an important step moving forward. And I just want to touch on as well, because if I just shared earlier on a bit of the digital twin, I mean, currently we are working with one of the Formula One in UK, one of the Formula One company, about their airflow technology in cars. And we are studying whether their technology can actually improve an internal environment. Things like that, it will happen now, and it should happen now, because this is where the digitization and the advancement of collaborative practices would improve and give, hopefully, in a choiceful environments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Raymond. Do you see, maybe Scott, do you see something happening, or an impact on maybe your day-to-day MEP or structural engineering kind of practice or design of a building that will allow this optimal flexibility? Is that something that you see is going to happen?
In terms of what we do in building design, I see a lot of clients and projects having a bit of a pause and considering resilience and flexibility, and you know, do they make changes to what they have already decided before they press on and get to construction. And obviously we see a process of people, clients trying to assess how they can get themselves back up and running in their existing buildings, and that's more of a workplace discussion. So you know, I think the way forward actually is small, subtle changes. I don't see that we are all talking about a mammoth shift in what we design as buildings. And the external shell that we have as buildings that we call our workplace is not going to change so significantly, because there's so much building stock out there that we need to be able to use effectively, and there will be limits in what you can do with it. But there will clearly be and there is a lot of rethinking about what is the setting that you put inside of the building. And having thought about what settings you need, what do you do with building systems to make it work and to make it work more safely? So I think, you know, resilience and flexibility are key words. There's a very obvious acceleration in some of the digital design and digital building operational systems that are taking place. You know, everyone's talked about the increase of the digital transformation. So clearly that is going to be a central part of what we're all living with in terms of buildings and between buildings going forward. And you know, the smart building technology provides a great enabler to get more flexible use of the existing building space we have, with relatively moderate costs of the interventions which have got to be added to them, both in terms of the user occupier experience and for companies who have got to manage and operate those facilities efficiently. And right now, and potentially in the short term, with using smart techniques to be able to intervene when you get situations of people in high density, and you've got to change your operating model, either by planning it or monitoring continuously. So there's definitely an acceleration in what is going on in the implementation of smart building solutions.
Thank you, Scott. I would like to jump into a question that we have from the audience. I see the time running, and I want to make sure that we can cover that. Simon is asking, are we all experiencing a major shift in focus whereby value would be placed in the people with a strong stake in the design decisions, yielding an outcome that is driven by the users and the behaviors that drive their business success? Who would like to take this one?
I don't mind having a go at that.
Stephen, yeah.
Yeah, look, I think certainly we're going through a big restructuring of the company itself, and we are seeing that those responsible for the built form are having a much bigger say in business strategy. The business strategy is being developed in conjunction with, rather than this is what we're doing, then provide the space. So from the context of, is there more influence and is there more involvement of a holistic approach, to a business and its environment? I definitely, that's something that is becoming more apparent, and it's on the guise of providing a better experience for the user. And we haven't touched on it yet, but I think we all talk about the war on talent, and of course, the qualified personnel and the high grade of personnel is something that is you will have to have an efficient and attractive and flexible working proposition for you to get that talent. So that's also becoming front and center. So I think in answer to the question, yes, more value and emphasis on the employees and the wellness and what they're being provided. And that in turn has led to that discussion being more apparent and more integrated with the business leadership with regards to the built form.
Right. So you've been talking about the users and people. There's a big elephant in the room here. As everybody is thinking about health and well-being. And we've been talking about this for many years. But now everybody is asking for it, even the users. And so what does it mean in terms of design? How do we design health and well-being? What does it mean beyond natural light and good air? What is it?
Well, so mental health. I think you've got mental health component as well.
Mental health, yeah.
So are people feeling that they're in an inclusive environment? Are they valued? Are they given that autonomy? I think Raymond touched on it earlier. We're all human, and we all have we have some inbuilt requirement that we don't even realize half the time, So are those parts met? And often the answer has been, well, not really. So I think those are being addressed more. Yeah. And the features of the office would also allow that to happen.
Yes, and I would like to add to that. I think I want to support even Stephen was mentioning. I mean, at the end, our business is the people themselves. Their talents retention is extremely high in every of our, even on my agenda on itself. So I think to come back, I mean, that's where my role as a designer, it has to be constantly centered around humans and themselves. And that is why I was sharing that our design strategic unit was actually using this avatar algorithm to actually collect the data of the staff and how they actually would like to use the space and even their characters, how they want to mingle. Because as I said, the 4 partitions can be built very easily at any point of time. It is the content of how the four walls will mold and to shape, you know, the space and to allow for flexibility, even for the environment itself. Maybe just now that I think I just want to touch on, I mean, I'm leveraging this question to move a bit. I mean, Scott talked about the machines, talk about the infrastructure, but how about a memo shift about thinking of the materials? You know, for example, timber. You know, timber for it is definitely well known for the audience that timber actually has a kind of benefits to us in many ways. And maybe it's about time to revisit timber that could be good for our own mental health and well-being. I mean, why am I saying this? Is because currently in UK, we are actually teaming up with one of the listed company, Stora's Enzo, to look into a timber office. You know, looking at how the office of the future can be made of timber. And because of the timber has many good qualities that could be exuded from that. So I think that is what I would like to share in this. Thank you.
Well, just sort of come in there as well about the end user, the staff having a say in everything. I mentioned earlier about the Leasement Survey, and the Leasement Survey specifically asks what sort of utilities, what sort of other activities you would like to be brought into the office. So the feedback from our survey was, as I mentioned before, F&B. Better F&B, but also it means better nutrition. So we're running a program now of trying to reduce the risk of our staff getting diabetes. Now that's probably isn't such a big thing where we are in Singapore. However, in India, their food and their cuisine is slightly different to here. So there's a big play on that side there. Also, we will have sort of open spaces in our office whereby people can do yoga, where they can sort of do some you know, a HIIT class and meditation and things like that. We have sleep pods as well. We have, you know, the standard mother's room, first aid room, prayer rooms, etc., things like that. So all of these things are being brought in, but it is all down to the well-being now, which is very, very important. We've got Mental Health Week coming up soon in the next few weeks. So I'm going to be trained as a sort of a coach on about, you know, how do you appreciate you have mental health and what sort of things to look out on, that sort of thing. So, you know, it's having some experts coming in just to tell us the sort of things which we need to look out for. And also for a bank, we have financial well-being as well. So you can actually sit down and talk about your own personal financial stakes as well. So it's, yeah, it's really gathering momentum now on well-being, so mental and physical and everything.
Yeah, I mean, we've got also a question from Taranjo in the audience. Was asking what are the different data points you would consider is important into this scenario, which could bring back key elements of decision making. For example, how to know what employee like or not like. This is because the implementation of a design takes a long time. How do we know what people want? How do we know what people need? Do you have any specific ways to address those needs?
Measure it.
Know those needs.
Measuring, yeah.
Measure it. So what we do, we have sensors. We're installing sensors. So if someone does not sit in a particular seat or a particular area, it's not successful. So change it out. Which is why another thing for, you know, interior design now is to make it more mobile, make it easier to change.
Great.
So there's measurement in terms of sensors. I think there's also the survey element.
Yeah.
We also use the same survey, but we also have a pulse survey that goes out regularly.
So that's the very nice transition to the topic of smart buildings and connected environments and the use of 5G to enable IoT and all these sensors to give us this instant feedback. So how do you think that this is going to be perceived? How can we implement this? Is it desirable to implement this? How far do you think a building should be smart? Anyone wants to try to answer this?
I mean, you could go on the basis of as far as you can afford it to be.
Yeah.
But I think you know, what we're looking at is we're looking at consolidating control and feedback and data on an app, which then interacts with the environment you're in. So your room booking, your desk booking, you can book your lunch, you could book a car or whatever if you're in a certain country, and just having that all in the hands of the user. Even go into a meeting room and you can have a blast of cold air if you think it's too warm, this kind of thing. And with that, you know, much like all the data companies in the world, how people use those things is automatically giving you some feedback as to what's working and what isn't working. So you can constantly improve. And I think, you know, from my perspective, and I think from a company's perspective, we are looking at implementing all those latest things that we can with each new project. And we're looking at ways of how we can adapt current offices to incorporate such things as well. So I think there's no limit is the answer, as far as technology allows it to happen.
Yeah.
And obviously this all has to be done with, when people sign up to use this app, they also have to understand and accept that this data might be used. So we also have to accommodate, you know, the privacy side of things. And you know, one of the reasons adoption is slower than it might be is to make sure these things are secure and cannot be infiltrated and the data used in the wrong manner. So I think the answer is there's no limit. And I think the desire would be, we've seen some buildings in the world. I think there's an extremely smart building in Holland, for example, which, you know, the edge, yeah, we've seen that. And I think that's where we're striving towards. Mm-hmm. Time and cost and scope allows, right?
Right. And maybe Scott, could you mention some things on the digital twins to have these smart buildings having a digital twin is the way to go.
Yeah, it's a concept that's already happening. It's not something that's new. I think in terms of current buildings, the concept of digital twin is more used in terms of setting up a live working environment for all of the features, control features, smart features, improving them before the building goes live, and particularly in relation to buildings which have a critical function. A part of the way that the smart building technology is moving is to integrate on the platform of the building integrated model. And you know, a number of the smart building functions are using artificial intelligence to optimize energy performance of aspects of a building, or using artificial intelligence to provide a level of sensing of where there are problems or predictive maintenance problems. So the building integrated model provides a very useful database of key system parameters, and as the smart building control algorithms have linked to that, it is becoming a digital twin of a building that you can operate in a virtual sense before you ever construct it. And this is part of the way things are going. I wanted to add a little example to you know, what Stephen was talking about in terms of users having a personal interface, which is, you know, predominantly through an application on their phone. One of the small subtle things that I've seen where people are considering how to respond to buildings in a COVID situation is that interface could go so far as allowing you to use the photocopier in the office in a touchless way, you know, without having to touch the photocopier. So there is no limit to the ideas which are flowing of what you can do across a digital platform. There's quite careful consideration, I guess, of what is really necessary and what is beneficial and what is cost effective to the users. And that's a harder equation, and everyone has to sit back and consider that, but it will continue to grow.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add to the, thank you. I would like to just add to the digital twin topic that Scott has just mentioned. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, the digital twin model actually helped us in our business to what I mentioned, that we are starting with the F1 formula company to study about airflows and even contagion spread. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Scott Brownrigg itself, we also design airports. And recently we released a manifesto with a digital twin study about how we could actually analyze the passenger flow and basically the queuing options and check-in and screening, to basically to rebuild confidence within the airport terminal design again. So I really felt that this is the time where digital twin, basically, in other words, is a real-time assessment in replicable world, to inform the stakeholders and investors of better decisions, and how basically through that running of various real-time scenarios to basically to understand how flexibility options could actually occur for them and at what cost. Yeah, thank you.
I would like one of the questions from one of our audience, anonymous attendee, is asking, in the context of delivering the right design solution for organizations, is there a risk of organizations placing too much reliance upon co-working operators? Anyone wants to take this one?
Yeah, we use co-working as an overflow. I've actually spent a week in a co-working place in Singapore. They're not as comfortable as they are in the office. So we've also had a health and safety person sort of come in, and it doesn't conform to our internal standards. But it's not to say that it doesn't conform to everyone's health and safety standards. From our side, being a bank, it's the regulatory side. It's the security. If you sit out in the collaboration area, you don't know who's looking over your shoulder and things like that. If you're sitting on the laptop or having a chat with someone. So we tend to need to do that, which we've done in London, we've done in India, we've done in Poland, etc. We've had collab. We just made it our own sort of space, put in our own network, put in our own security. Yeah. So it's an option.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, I think unfortunately we're reaching the end of this webinar pretty soon. I just want to give you 5 minutes if you guys have a burning thing you want to say. To kind of like wrap it up, anyone who had something to say that didn't have the chance to voice it out, or you've all got it.
I think from our side, the office is not dead, but it's changing. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I would like to just share my last message. I hope to the audience that basically we must not lose sight in climate change. I mean, statistics have shown, that the global lockdown in the COVID peak, that basically significantly CO2 emissions were actually much reduced. And in some scenarios, even rare sightings of fauna were actually walking out on the streets unharmed. I think one of the silver bullets moving forward is a continuing strong agenda through ESG policies to reduce carbon footprint, and so that our future generation are in a better and not worse position from where we are right now. Thank you.
Fantastic. I think that's great ending. And I'm sorry if you I think we don't have time for maybe 1 minute, Stephen. I know you want to say something.
No. For me, I think the message was, we're thinking more about the human-centric working environment. Yeah. I think that's going to continue and develop further and further. And I think, again, the office isn't dead, and it is about people at the end of the day. And I think the emphasis, given COVID, has re-energized that emphasis. And, people are thinking about it more than they were before. And it's more accepted as well with leadership and organizational structure. So I think that's the positive to come out of this all.
Right. Thank you. Scott, any
I think the word user experience, which has come up several times, is really very valid. Flexible, resilient spaces, and the changes in buildings and what we work in don't have to be major. They can move in a subtle way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's always hard to stop a conversation when it's we don't have all the answers, but I think this is what it is, and we can continue offline, no problem. Sorry for the two other persons who asked questions. We couldn't get them answered at this time. But really thank you for all our panelists. And I will pass it on to Wendy for the closing remarks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Yannick, and thank you to everybody on the panel. That was a fascinating conversation. I agree, it's all about customer and employee experience. I'm very excited to see the change that design can bring. Super fascinated about the concept of timber and materials and the design changes that we could bring into the work environment and also be more sustainable in the process. Up on your screen, you should see a couple of upcoming events that BritCham are hosting. Political violence in turbulent times, what a fascinating topic that is. Into the Unknown with the great Grant Rawlinson. I have personally experienced that workshop myself. It's fantastic, don't miss it. And video conferencing masterclass. Who doesn't need to know how to do better video conferences? It's a skill we're all still figuring out, even though we seem to do 12 hours a day, every day. There will be an event feedback survey emailed to you and should land in your inbox sometime later today. Please do fill the survey out, and we look forward to inviting you to further built environment events in the near future. Thank you again, Yannick, and all of the speakers. A fantastic job.